could 10 years ago. You know, and the thing is, and it's not about just the resources, because the resources are all there. You can Google half the resources. You can go and do a course. You know, you can learn to become anything you want to be if you actually want to do that. Admittedly, you're not going to come out with a degree, although you could go to Open University, or you could do... There's a number of other options. But people, the more reliant they become on the state, and the amount of all the with all the resources that are around, people are becoming less resourceful. And the thing is, they're not thinking now. They're not thinking how to solve the problem. They're not thinking because they haven't been conditioned. They haven't been conditioned how to do that. So all of a sudden, we're going into this generation where, you know, the future of work is going towards entrepreneurism. You're going to have to become self-reliant. Otherwise, you're going to suffer, because the thing is, there's not going to be a lot of money down the road when you want to get your state handouts every month. And then someone actually described it to me the other day as we're coming into the gig generation. Yeah. So it's like being a rock, a rock band.
But you see,
hold on a second. You're being a rock band. You're going from gig to gig to gig to gig to gig. And the thing is, that's, it seems to be that's the way we're headed. Do you know something? I'm so glad I've taught my daughter to be self-reliant in that respect.
Well,
and I was probably harsh on her in the early stages, but she had to learn how to actually develop and make decisions for herself. I said to her when she was young, she was about 8 years old, and I said to her, Megan, I'm going to tell you the biggest secrets in the world, or the two biggest secrets in the world. And she said, oh, what's that, Dad? And she's thinking I was actually going to give her something really juicy. And I says, figure out what you want, and then figure out how you're going to go and get it. And I said that to her when she was 9. Now 7, I think it was 7, because at 7 years old she came up to me and she said to me, Dad, I want some popcorn. And I had these microwavable popcorn bags that you get, in the supermarket. And it so happens that my microwave is above my fridge. And she says, Dad, I want some popcorn. I said, how badly do you want it? No, I really, really, really want it. And I says, well, how are you going to figure out how to get it? Because there's the microwave, and there's the popcorn. And she got a chair. She grabbed the popcorn. She got the chair. She put it under the cupboard. She stood up on it. Now, obviously, I had to help her on how to put the microwave on and press the buttons. But apart from that, that is the conditioning that I decided to give my daughter. And what school teaches you these days, it teaches you to conform, because it's easier to control kids by getting them to conform to their rules. And then a lot of them aren't really making a lot of the decisions themselves. Mm-hmm. And we are not teaching them how to be financially literate or financially savvy. We're not teaching them how to actually be self-reliant, because one, it's too much like hard work to control the mavericks who are capable. We only want 1 or 2 of them, but everyone else, if we can control them, it makes this teacher's life so much easier. And let's face it, we want the workers, we want the taxpayers. We don't want too many chiefs. We want enough Indians.
That's it. And so you see, there's one fundamental flaw in the scenario that you're describing that's unfolding in terms of the future expectations of work, and that is, humans don't want to think. In fact, in terms of the political system, humans have been shown to be incapable of consistent, rational thought for many reasons. One, because people's opinions are exceptionally fickle, and has been shown in different types of experiments again and again. Secondly, because people can be influenced incredibly easily by the media and by their own emotional cues, and therefore humans just don't want to think, which is why authoritarian and totalitarian regimes actually do work for a long time. So in fact, this idea that people are going to have to be self-reliant in terms of future occupation is a complete disaster. Humans don't want that. They can't cope with it. And again, that's another problem of leadership and government.
Do you know the biggest power someone has is the ability to think?
No, but they don't have that ability to.
No, they do have the ability.
Not a consistent
people do.
strategic manner.
A lot of people don't, but a lot of people have the ability to think. If you want to know what the new world order is, I'll tell you what people talk about the new world order. The people who are going to are the thinkers, are the people who can actually make decisions. They're the people, they're the ones.
But those are the leaders.
Those are the leaders. But the people who think.
But the vast majority are not leaders.
No,
and neither do they want to be.
But they don't actually. They don't actually have to be sweat house.
began.
They don't have to be sweatshop workers either.
Not sweatshop workers, but the largest number of people are factory workers. And
factory workers, whatever you want to call it.
And that is the vast number of jobs that are available. And as we said, only 2% of jobs are careers, and one of the biggest cons of the century is encouraging and forcing everyone to follow a career, because 98% of people will fail and then see the sacrifices they made to do that as being wasted.
Well, and as I said, this gig generation, as someone described to me, and I think it was very aptly put, everyone's going to go from little project to little project to little project, and I recognise that's the way it's going. I can see it. You see all these WeWorks all over the place, and people with these little cubicles, and they're paying their £400 a month for their office space, and people on YouTube.
Disaster.
And
all that's going to happen. All that's going to do.
It's how did my daughter describe it? She described it as actually there's so many it's called so many generations. She called it we're in the hustle generation.
You see, all that
it's
is
the hustle generation.
Disaster. All that is a symptom of disintegrating society and structure, because of course when people were part of a organisation, institution, part of a corporation, as that's a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. And one should not forget that even in biblical terms, people are always described by their occupation. So your occupation is your identity in a very deep way. And by telling people, actually, now you don't have one, now you're going to have to seek a different one, people can't cope with that. All you have to do is see the disastrous effects.
No. It's not that they can't cope with it. It's that they've been taught not to cope with it. And providing people, and I've said this before, we talked about people, safe space. I said, my safe space when I was at school was the end of my arm with a clenched fist.
But you need to...
That was my safe space.
What?
Now, I'm not suggesting that people have been bullied. And there was this whole thing about being bullied in Parliament. We're talking about there's a lot of bullying going on in the House of Commons. Do you know something? That concerns me even more, because the thing is, if you're employing someone who hasn't got the balls to stand up, or hasn't, and allows themselves to be bullied, then they're making decisions not on your behalf, but they're doing it through intimidation, coercion. Now, I'm not saying that bullying is right, because the thing is, bullying isn't power. Because if you have to pick on people smaller than yourself to actually make yourself more significant, that is actually that is not power. That's tyranny. That's the other. It's weakness actually.
I don't know. Bullying is disgraceful and disgusting.
Right? But the thing
we don't know what happened.
The thing is, if people in Parliament are being bullied, it means that they can't stand up to it, and they're not fit for the role. Sorry, if they're making decisions on behalf of a lot of people, you don't want someone who's weak.
Yeah, but we also
decisions.
Don't know what was going on. It might be simply a politically correct report.
Well, let's not call it bullying, because the thing is, there's the bully, which is fine, which is weak. But then, if you're a victim who's representing people and you're behaving like a victim, you're not serving your constituency.
Well, of course not. Well, don't forget that most politicians serve themselves anyway. So
they do.
So by definition, they regard themselves as incredibly vulnerable, and therefore will always tend to bully, because only weak people bully. Going back to identity, as I said before, there are various levels of identity. There is your national identity, there is your work identity, and underneath that is your personal identity. But most people just are not really able to develop that strongly enough, because we all function by emotion.
Again, can you put personal identity? How would you describe personal identity to people so they understand in context?
It's who you are, taken as an island of identity within the community and the environment that you live in and you exist in. It's who you are. But if you ask someone, they say, well, I'm the baker. I'm the... in the olden days, I'd be the goldsmith. I'd be the person welding horseshoes. I'd be the road builder. I'd be the house builder. I'd be the doctor. I'd be the lawyer. And this is very much how it's always described in biblical terms, in literature, and it's incredibly powerful. And the reason why we have great difficulty with our own individual identity is because we all function with anxiety, and therefore what we do is we're constantly trying to reduce our anxiety and avoid it. And we're always trying to do what we think we need to do rather than what we want to do. And because we're always trying to do what we think we need to do, we're not really paying attention to ourselves. And by removing further structure and telling everyone, well, you're not going to have any proper long-term jobs and the average job is going to last you 5 years, if that, then people are going to get even more anxious and even more try and do what they think they need to do and not have any of their own personal identity.
Well, no, because people start operating from a place of scarcity and they start making decisions emotionally rather than rationally.
That's it. And one of my patients came in to me and I said, "What can I do for you?" And she said, "I've decided it's time to change." And I looked at her and said, "You know what? You've been trying to change your whole life. Now you've got to learn to be yourself." So what I mean by that is that she's trying to constantly do what she thinks she needs to mold herself to what she thinks she needs to do, rather than understand who she is and follow that road. It's a far more challenging road initially and needs a lot more work and self-awareness, and less people are able to do that effectively.
But you also got to consider, and this is why, and this is why I spend, I have several clients, because the thing is the market landscape has changed, the environmental landscape has changed. Not only do we have to mold ourselves, but we have to mold ourselves, but then again mold ourselves into a new environment.
But I just said molding is a big disaster. Molding is what causes anxiety and stress.
Of course, but the thing is, if that's the society the way it is, I mean, unless you're going to actually live on an island by yourself, you can have all the self-awareness you want, but and you do have to have self-awareness, but you got to have self-awareness in the present time of what this or what's coming in the future.
Well, that's right.
Because let's face it, if you're in the petrochemical industry and you want to be there in 10, 20 years time, chances are there's not going to be a lot of petrol and diesel cars in 10 and 20 years time, because they're all moving to electric.
Correct.
So and that's a new environment. So you've got to learn to adapt in that new environment. You've got to learn to adapt and work with artificial intelligence. It's a different playing field there, and the rules are constantly changing. So you've got to become you in that environment.
Well, it's a problem of government and leadership, isn't it? Again, the point. The government needs to find ways of making people feel secure in their work environments.
And maybe that's my problem, because I stopped relying on government decisions long time ago. I started learning to make my own decisions. I recognise there's a law
but
there.
You're one of the few people who can.
I recognise there's a law there. I adhere to the law because that is the law of the country I live in. If I don't like it, I can choose to go and live elsewhere and live by the rules of their law. I don't go there to change it to suit my needs. If you don't like them, if you don't like it, go and live somewhere that does. And this is what the whole thing is. You know what? If you really want harmony, and we've said this before, go and everyone's got to find a piece of turf in this world where the same values are aligned, and you go and you go there. If you don't like it, you look.
Unless leadership provides
it's impossible to actually achieve that.
Well, unless leadership provides it and makes it a legal prerequisite of continue to exist in that space, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, because Key West. I remember Key West in the States when I went there. That was very. Your own sexual identity. Same in San Francisco. It was a very large gay community, and if you felt safe in that environment, you go there. And you could go and say, "Oh yeah, but I want to be who I want ever." Yeah, of course you can. But then there's going to be consequences to that.
So the secret of health, one of the secrets of health for the nation, is providing a coherent national identity, which has made a prerequisite for people to adhere to if they're allowed to live in that country.
Okay, well, thanks for ending it on that one, because we're running out of time. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we hope to speak to you next week, and we would love to hear your feedback. Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.